Hi friends, how are you all? I've missed talking to you so much. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to post these last 2 weeks. I've just started working on a new picture book project, and it's a really sweet story that takes place during the winter solstice. But the very first cover sketches and interior sample spread was due, and so the deadline on top of wedding planning meant that I didn't have any time to edit. Thankfully, I've handed in the sketches now, and so I have time to work on these videos again. Today's video captures some productive moments in the week of a children's book illustrator, and I started off the week on Monday with admin emails and some tea, of course. I was getting back to art directors and agents about current picture books, but also checking in with an art director for a project that I just handed in. The publisher for that project was based in China, and so I had to provide some additional information about how I wanted my name to appear in the book, what my nationality and ethnicity was, and other information like that. Like I mentioned, I've been busy wedding planning, and one of the things that was highest on my priority list was drawing a save the date for friends and family. We were really short on time, and so my fiancé and I decided to go for a minimal approach with just a simple sketch. The look we were going for was the title pages that you see in old books with the stained paper and black and white spot illustrations. My fiancé is a graphic designer, and so he ended up working on making sure that everything was aligned and formatted properly, as well as adding a few extra details. So here's a time lapse of me working on our save the dates in case you were interested in the process. One of the things that's been on my to-do list for a while now is creating a new setup for my desk. If you've watched my previous videos, this space is probably quite familiar to you as it's where I work, but I've also been using it as a backdrop for my sit-down videos. The biggest thing that kept bothering me was how cluttered everything felt. When my family first moved into this house, my children's book career was just starting, and so I wanted lots of pictures and artworks on my wall to keep the inspiration flowing. I really loved being able to switch out postcards throughout the seasons, and the wall felt like a little art gallery to me. But lately, I've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the various postcards and prints, and I've been wanting to take everything down to see the wall again properly and have some breathing space. Another thing that I've been wanting to do for a while was getting rid of the monitor because it was just a bit too clunky and I felt like I didn't really need it. I also got the best use out of my 2 white desks, but they were second-hand desks for my dad and had a lot of scratches and wear to them. So whilst I am moving out in September after we get married, I took the initiative to change up the space a little bit, and I purchased a couple of items to hopefully make the space feel a little airier and more functional too. Books are such a huge part of my life, and I realised that my current setup didn't allow much space for them to be featured or displayed. Currently, I have a bookshelf at the back of my room, and I also have other shelves throughout the room that were built into the wall when I first moved in, but I wanted to create a special section for my immediate physical TBR so that I can see which books are on my priority list. It was actually rather bittersweet when I was taking all the artwork down. On the one hand, I felt so much lighter being able to stare at an empty wall again. But on the other hand, this was the first time that I'd seen the wall empty since we'd moved in about 3 or 4 years ago now. So it felt like I was in an entirely different room, and it was a little bit disorientating. But I got over it once I started adding the shelves, some artwork, some Studio Ghibli knickknacks, a really beautiful banker's lamp, and a brand new desk. I want to take the time to thank the sponsor of this video, FlexiSpot, who was so generous to gift me one of their beautiful standing desks. When FlexiSpot reached out to me asking if I'd be interested in one of their standing desks, I was over the moon. I've been wanting to test out a standing desk to see how it could change and improve my workflow, and I can honestly say that having the freedom to change the height of my desk has been so wonderful for when I want to stretch out my legs throughout the day. The desk that I have is the FlexiSpot Standing Desk E7 in white with the maple desktop, and the measurements are 120 by 80 centimeters. One of my favourite things about it is that it has a setting where you can choose a certain height and save it so that with one touch your desk automatically moves to that exact position that you've saved. The menu and settings screen is all touchscreen, and the desk is insanely sturdy and stable. It can actually hold up to 125 kilos. The transition is so smooth that it keeps everything perfectly in place whenever you move it higher or lower, and is also really quiet too in case you were wondering. I'm so happy with the incredible quality of the desk, and it's definitely coming with me when I move in September. If you'd like to have your very own standing desk, I'll leave all the details down below in the description box, and a huge thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. As I was filming this vlog, I ended up reaching 10k on the channel, and I wanted to thank each and every single one of you for your love and support. So I thought I'd film a Q&A to answer some of your questions to celebrate together. I asked over on Instagram if you had any questions, and I've noted some of the most frequently asked ones here, so I thought I'd answer them as I share this time lapse of some of the doodles I drew to keep track of my spring TBR. Did you go to university, and what did you study? Yes, I think this often surprises a lot of people when I say this, but I didn't study art or illustration at uni, although I did study fine art as one of my A-levels in sixth form. Instead, I studied religion and theology and have a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Bristol. How did you become a children's book illustrator? I really loved my religion and theology course, but COVID happened in the middle of my second year at uni, and so I spent almost all of my second and third year studying from home instead of at Bristol. During this time, everyone was picking up old and new hobbies throughout lockdown, and so I decided to pick up my dad's iPad and I downloaded Procreate because I wanted to try my hand at digital art. A-level art was really fun and it pushed me artistically, but I didn't want to pursue fine art any further, and I didn't see myself in a creative career, funnily enough, and so I was content to leave it behind as a hobby. As a result, I hadn't picked up a paintbrush since joining uni in 2018. Digital art was a new media for me, so it took me quite a long time to figure out how I wanted to draw, but it reinvigorated my love for drawing and I started posting quite early on for fun on Instagram. Soon I discovered an entire world of digital artists before stumbling into the children's book world for the very first time. I don't think I even realised that being a children's book illustrator was an actual profession until this point, but I fell in love with the idea of being able to read books and be a part of books in a creative way. And so I started to cater my art to a more children's book approach by figuring out how to draw characters and animals in a stylized way, as well as practicing backgrounds. It was completely different from what I was used to in fine art, so it took some months for me to navigate my way, but I had the best time finding an art community over on Instagram. Once I graduated, I decided to take a gap year to figure out what I wanted to do, and in this time, an illustration agency discovered me through Instagram and asked if I'd be interested in joining their agency. At this point, I'd created a website and a very rough portfolio of everything that I'd drawn, and so thankfully I had something to show professionally, but I was incredibly blessed because I didn't have to go through a submission stage at all. What do you like to do in your non-work time? / what are some of your hobbies besides reading? Of course, I love books and I love reading. It's undoubtedly my number one favourite hobby, especially since I became a children's book illustrator, because I now tend to associate drawing with work. So I usually try to spend my free time not drawing. Other than that though, I really love being able to do puzzles as I watch a film or listen to an audiobook, but my biggest struggle with puzzling is that I have really bad motion sickness, and so for some reason puzzling tends to trigger it, and it makes me feel really nauseous and sick and gives me very bad headaches. Now, I don't know if that sounds really silly or not, but because of it I don't tend to puzzle as much as I'd like to. But I also love walking my dog, drinking lots of tea, and journaling as a form of downtime. What are some of your favourite books, and who are your favourite authors of all time? So I always have the hardest time answering these kinds of questions, but I think in terms of book staples, Anne of Green Gables, Daughter of the Forest, Babel, Half a Soul, A River Enchanted and Harry Potter have to be up there. I also remember absolutely loving the Night Circus and the Nevermore series, but I haven't read them in a very long time now, so I want to refresh my memory and reread them this year hopefully, to see if I still love them as much as I did back then. In terms of authors, Ellen Montgomery and Rebecca Ross are my favourites, and the thing that they have in common are their incredibly otherworldly descriptions of nature, coupled with utterly lovable characters that you can't help but become attached to. What's your favourite tea? I love this question. My favourite tea is loose leaf and herbal tea. I think it's because this is the only kind of tea that I drank growing up in a Korean family. Even though I was born in England, because we usually only drank 보리차 or 유자차 at home, or even 꿀물, I never actually tried making tea the English way until a couple of years ago. I love the aroma of loose leaf tea and seeing all the dried herbs and flowers in it. In terms of brands, I haven't found my all-time favourite yet, but I really want to try Chapter's tea one day because they're a literary lover's dream. How old is Milk? Milk is 7 years old. It says that he's a Maltese on his birth certificate, but I'm pretty sure that he's part Bichon Frise too. What are some of your favourite Christian non-fiction books? When I was born again in October 2019, I discovered the world of Christian non-fiction books through my fiancé, and for about 2 years, that's all I read. Sadly, I haven't been reading as many lately as I'd like, but here are some of my favourites that I really recommend for their rich theology, but also for the profound effect that they had on me spiritually and personally. J.I. Packer's Knowing God and the Quest for Godliness, all of John Piper's books, but notably Seeing Beauty and Saying Beautifully is a wonderful treasure chest of a book for artists and writers. C.S. Lewis's books are of course famous worldwide, but I think the Screwtape Letters will always remain a fundamental book in my collection for me. I also love Charles Spurgeon's Practical Wisdom and R.C. Sproul's The Holiness of God, and when I was writing my dissertation on the Puritans, I discovered Jeremiah Burroughs' The Rare Jewel of Christian Contentment. It's a phenomenal little book on contentment and one I'm due for a reread on. Last but not least, some more accessible and modern books that are still rich in wisdom that I really recommend for when we're suffering or maybe those around us are suffering include Gentle and Lowly by Dane Ortland and Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy by Mark Roykop. I feel like I've just dumped a whole bucket load of information and books to you, but I hope you feel like you know me a little bit better now. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you have any other questions that you'd like me to answer, I'll try to answer it in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and also a big thank you to FlexiSpot. I love you all so much. Bye friends!